The candidates for November are set.
I know Donald Trump's type.
Between now and Election Day,
we are not going back.
A campaign season unfolding faster.
Kamala Harris is not getting a promotion
Than any in recent history.
Make America great again.
Follow it all with new episodes every weekday on the NPR Politics Podcast.
Are you enjoying this podcast? Well, you have KUOW members to thank for that. KUOW members make the trusted local journalism and storytelling you hear on this show possible. Become a member today and help support the production of this podcast. It only takes a minute. Make a donation at KUOW.org or follow the link in the show notes. And thanks.
You're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Denkman. For months, parents, students, and faculty at Seattle schools have been nervously awaiting news about potential elementary closures throughout the district. Back in May, Seattle Public Schools announced it would need to close roughly 20 schools, citing a $105 million budget shortfall. Now, the wait to know for sure about the fate of Seattle schools isn't over quite yet, but elementaries on the chopping block have been identified. Yesterday, the district's well-resourced schools website published two different proposals. One would close 17 schools. The other recommends closing 21. KUOW's education reporter Sami West has been reporting on this all year, and she joins me now. Hi, Sami. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Sami, what's been proposed here? Can you explain the difference between the two options?
Yeah, so there are two options, like you said. Overall, both plans spread cuts across the city, and 16 of the schools are both on the same list. So we shouldn't have too much of a Hunger Games situation here. Maybe just a little, but the two plans are different in a few key ways. Option A, or the well-resourced schools plan, has 21 schools closing, and that includes most of the district's K-8 schools and option schools. And those are schools with specialized programming that you have to apply to get into. And that would save the district about $31.5 million. Option B closes 17 schools. It keeps a K-8 school open in each region and saves some of those option schools. And that would save the district about $26 million, which would mean that the district would have to find another $6 to $7 million to cut, besides those school closures. So, yeah, those are really the two big options, but that wasn't all that they had on the table.
So what are the other options presented, and what is SPS telling parents?
Yeah, so the district also laid out two other alternatives. One is to scale the closures anywhere from 0 to 25 schools. So basically go back to the drawing board on it. And the other option is to not close any schools. But from what I hear, that's not really a true option. I spoke with board president Liza Rankin yesterday, and she was just saying, given the state of things in the district, that's not a real option to them.
Given where we are with the budget and just knowing that enrollment is projected to continue to decline, it's a hard decision, but it's the one that has to be made in order to best serve our students today and sustain our district into the future.
All right, Sami, so what's next for parents of these affected students in the schools that might close?
Yeah, so what's coming next is a lot more community meetings and information meetings where parents will get to weigh in on these proposals and just hear more about, the district's rationale. They laid out a lot of that yesterday, but there's still, I'm sure, much more to come. But no final decisions will be made until December is what they're aiming for, at least before winter break. And next month, we are expecting to get one final closure proposal from district administrators.
What kind of reaction are you hearing so far?
Really mixed reactions, and just a lot of, yesterday was a big moment. We've been waiting for this for about a year, and families, I think, they don't know how to feel. In some senses, it's a weight lifted. They have more information.
They have some more clarity.
Yeah, but they're also, they're sad, especially if their school is on one of these lists. And
one of those 16, for example, that was on both lists, that seems like the writing's on the wall.
Right. And, regardless of what a parent's feeling is about closures, whether they support them or not, there was just this intense sadness. Schools are deeply personal to people and communities. So there was just this sadness. I talked to one parent, Arlen McCasey, yesterday at Green Lake Elementary. And, she understands why the district needs to do this, but she's still really sad about it. She was already saying that she's mourning her walk to school every morning.
I get to walk along the lake and come up and see the trees, and that's our bike ride, and that's what we do. And so it's just kind of like knowing this is like our last year doing all that, and we'll create a new one, and that's fine. It will be what it is, but it's just sad.
Ugh, that's a bummer. The walk to school, that is such a special time, especially if you can do that with your kid. So how did public schools get here? Sami, we've talked about this before, but refresh people. How did they dig such a big budget hole?
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. The district has been in an ongoing budget crisis. Enrollment has been declining since the pandemic, and, the district has lost about 9% of its students over the last 5 years. And so the district just says they need to consolidate schools. They have too many buildings for the amount of students they have now. And if they go down to a smaller number of schools, they can more evenly and robustly distribute resources. For example, some schools don't have full-time nurses or librarians. They're shared across several schools. And so they just think that they'll be able to better serve students. But that also doesn't mean it's not a hard decision.
Yeah, there's less overhead if you have fewer buildings. But I do remember when Seattle schools closed a bunch of buildings in the early to mid 2000s, and then there was a rebound and they had to reopen some of them. And that is something that I've heard parents and folks watching this wonder, couldn't that happen again, Sami? What are you hearing?
Yeah, there's definitely real concerns about that. Back in 2007, 2008, the last time that Seattle considered closures, parents and community members were really, really upset. It led to lawsuits, security being called to school board meetings, safety concerns at district events, attempted recalls of school board members, the departure of the superintendent. And then, by October 2009, the district was seeing a turnaround in enrollment, and they had to go back and reopen all of these schools. And all of that could happen again. But what I'm hearing from the district is that they are being extra cautious this time to make sure that their projections are accurate. They've consulted 2 outside sources to confirm their projections. So they're really confident in their data, but also just knowing that that's our history, you never know what's going to happen. It's hard to know, whether more families will suddenly move in or whether the birth rate will randomly come back. So you just don't know.
Yeah, but the district thinks that these are real demographic trends and they're not getting those students back. So we've seen some push on social media for parents to reach out to elected leaders, the city council, the King County Council. Is there any indication that political action would prevent these closures?
I'm not seeing a real indication of that happening. I think there is a lot of momentum, especially behind just reforming funding for schools in Washington. But I also think that, given where SPS is at, I don't think that the legislature can come through with real help in such a short amount of time.
And I have a real question whether or not those politicians want to touch this issue. It's going to be a really difficult fight. Just really quick, anything else you're going to be watching for, Sami, as this goes forward?
Well, neither of the 2 major options they presented are final. So, we could see a whole different proposal in the coming weeks. We just don't know. Everything is very much in flux. So we'll just have to see what proposals the district ends up pursuing.
Sami West covers education for KUOW. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. This show is only possible because listeners support us. If you're able to give right now, please check out the show notes for a link to donate. And don't forget, you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 FM Seattle at noon and 8 p.m., Monday through Thursday, or anytime online at KUOW.org.
Hi there, I'm Monica Guzman, host of A Braver Way podcast and your guide across the political divide. Are you done with the divisiveness in our politics and ready to do something about it? This season, we've partnered with KUOW to reach more listeners like you. Join me as I sit down with guests from across the political spectrum. Together, we'll share tools, insights, and messy, real-life stories to help you face this election year without losing heart. Listen to A Braver Way now on the KUOW app or wherever you get your podcasts.